Idam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupagada Mayam Jati Swapadantikam Vandeham Sri Guru Sri Juta Parakamalam Sri Guru Vaishnavamscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raganatam Mitam Tang Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Sri Vishakan Vidungscha He Krishna Koruna Sindho Dinabando Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hori Priye Vanchakapachubhyascha kripa sindhubhyacha patitanam bhavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Jaya Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naramachaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudidayet Nasta Presho Badreshu Nityam Bhagavad Shevaya Bhagavad Yuttama Shloki Bhakti Bhavati Naistaki. So today, Thursday, July 3rd, 2025, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Creation of the Fourth Order. Chapter 29 talks between Narada and King Prachinabhahi. Text number 8. Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gudaviti Dve dve dvarao bahiryati Yastarindriya samyuta Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gudaviti Dve dve dvarao bahiryati Yastarindriya samyuta Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gudhaviti Hold on. My computer pages going away. Dve dve dvarao bahiryati Yastarindriya samyutaha Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gradaviti Dve dve dvara bahiryati Yastarindriya samyutaha Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gudaviti Dve dve dvarao bahiryati Yastarindriya samyutaha Akshini nasike karnao Mukam shishna gudaviti Dve dve dvarao bahiryati Yastarindriya samyuta Akshini nasike karnao
Shishna Gudavati
Mukam Krishna Godaviti
Dve Dve Dvarao Bahiryati
Dve Dve Dvarao Bahiryati
Yastarindriya Samyutaha
Yastarindriya Samyuta. Very good, chanting. The word for word, please repeat. Akshini, to eyes. Nasike, to nostrils. Karanau, to ears. Mukam, mouth. Jishna, genitals. Gudao, and rectum. Iti, thus. Dve, two. Dve, two. Dwarao, gates. Bahi, outside. Yati, goes. Yaha, one who. Tat, through the gates. Indriya, by the senses. Sangyutaha, accompanied. Translation by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. The eyes, nostrils, and ears are pairs of gates situated in one place. The mouth, genitals, and rectum are also different gates. Being placed into a body, having these 9 gates, the living entity acts externally in the material world and enjoys sense objects like form and taste. Please repeat. The eyes, nostrils, and ears.
The eyes, nostrils, and ears
Are pairs of gates situated in one place.
are pairs of gates situated in one place.
The mouth, genitals, and rectum
Mouth, genitals, and rectum
are also different gates.
are also different gates.
Being placed into a body having these 9 gates,
Being placed into a body having these 9 gates.
the living entity acts externally in the material world
Living entity acts externally in the material world
and enjoys sense objects like form and taste.
and enjoys sense objects like form and taste.
Purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Not being aware of his spiritual position, the living entity, directed by the mind, goes out through the 9 gates to enjoy material objects. Because of long association with material objects, he forgets his real spiritual activities and is thus misled. The entire world is going on being misled by so-called leaders like scientists and philosophers who have no knowledge of the spirit soul. Thus, the conditioned soul becomes more and more entangled. Akshini nasike karanao mukam shishna gudaviti dve dve dvara bahir yati yastarindriya samyutaha. The eyes, nostrils, and ears are pairs of gates situated in one place. The mouth, genitals, and rectum are also different gates. Being placed into a body having these 9 gates, the living entity acts externally in the material world and enjoys sense objects like form and taste. Mukam karoti bachalam angam lagayate girim jatakripa tamaham vande Sri Gurum Dinataranam Paramananda Madhavam. The subject matter is rather weighty when you understand the existential condition of the living entity who has accepted a material body. It's actually rather frightening and sobering, or should be sobering, at least to one who is intelligent. Now, we have gone through a couple of chapters of Narada Muni explaining to King Prachini Barhi about Paranjana, the living entity, living in the city of the 9 gates and all the details of that activity. So this chapter is kind of summarizing the real internal meaning of this whole extensive conversation that's been going on for a couple of chapters. And all the facts are being laid bare. And when we understand that actually this is not some fanciful fairy tale or some, parable for the, illiterate and less educated, but actually this is a very scientific explanation of the real situation of the living entity in this material body. So to grasp the purport of this subject matter and understand it properly requires that one be very sober and introspective to grasp the subject matter properly, because this is what each one of us are going through. This is our experience. This is our situation. And the consequences are dire if we don't understand the subject matter properly. And of course, Krishna begins his teachings in the Bhagavad Gita with, first of all, delineating the difference between the eternal soul and the temporary material body. Because the whole world is operating under the spell of the illusory energy in such a way that everyone is thinking that I am this body. And so when one is thinking this way, that I am this body, then, which is a state of ignorance, it's the soul covered. The real knowledge of the soul is covered by illusion. And in that state of ignorance, one naturally takes it that the business of this body is to enjoy the senses. Here the analogy is given that the living entity within this body, which is the city of 9 gates, allegorically, he goes out to enjoy through these gates. The gates are the eyes, the ears, the nostrils, the mouth, the genitals, and the rectum. So, if one is sober and intelligent and can grasp the deeper purport of one's situation within this body, then naturally a person in knowledge will not be inclined to try to enjoy this body. And this is the training that's imparted through Bhakti Yoga. First of all, there's a practical aspect of the training, what one does and what one does not do. One has to understand these things properly. Actually, Krishna explains about, in the Bhagavad Gita, those who have taken to the demoniac way of life, which means what? I am this body, and this life is meant to enjoy the senses. He says that they don't know what is to be done, and they don't know what is not to be done. So in such a condition of ignorance, the whole human society is operating under a false premise, and almost intuitively, everyone is doing the wrong things that should not be done and neglecting those things which should be done. So, what should be done? Lord Rishabhdev explains that in the 5th canto, 5th chapter of the Bhagavatam. Tapo divyam putukayena sattvam sudyad yasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam. Tapo divyam, one should perform divine austerities. Putuka, he's talking to his sons, putra. Tapo divyam putukayena sattvam. Activities which purify oneself and elevate one towards sattva, towards goodness. The modes of nature consisting of sattva gun, the mode of goodness, which is the highest mode of nature, the purest. Then gradually descending to rajagun, the mode of passion, and then tamogun, the mode of ignorance. So, yena sattvam, sudyad, one should become purified. Tapo divyam putukayena sattvam, sudyad yasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam. And if one engages in this way, voluntarily performing austerities for the purpose of spiritual advancement, then sudyad yasmad brahmasaukyam tvanantam, one can come to the platform of brahmasaukyam, spiritual happiness. Sukha means happiness. And brahmasaukyam, Brahma means of the spirit. Brahmasaukyam tvanantam. And that happiness is not like the ordinary material happiness that everyone is running around trying so intensely to enjoy. It's brahmasaukyam tvanantam, ordinary happiness of experiencing the senses in contact with their objects. That is a temporary and limited business, although that doesn't seem to stop anyone or almost everyone from doing that. There's no consideration. That's what I want, and I want it now. I want to enjoy. I love that, quoting that beer commercial from the 1960s when I was a child. You know, you watch the football game on TV, and of course, it's all those beer commercials. That's who sponsored the game. And the announcer comes on, there's a picture of the really macho clipper ship, guy sailing on the clipper ship, and the wind's filling the sails, and he's on the deck. Yes. And then the announcer comes on in this really big voice. You only go round once in life, so you have to grab for all the gusto you can. And it's like, what a rascal philosophy, and what a rascal presentation. This is completely ignorant. It's completely wrong. But drink this beer and you will experience that gusto of life. You will enjoy your senses. You will be a real man. It's complete foolishness. And that's what's being sold. And that is actually the philosophy of the common man. The whole of country music is about like beer and one-night stands, the pickup trucks. Of course, often the one-night stand is in the pickup truck. And the interactions, the foolishness that goes on in the places where country music is played, the bar. It just so happens that I know of what I speak because I used to play in the country and western duo, and I played in these places. And I was doing this when I first came to Krishna consciousness. And I quickly realized, man, I got to get out of here. This is just unspeakable mode of ignorance. It's unspeakable. It's so horrible. Even I was experiencing that without any knowledge of Krishna consciousness. I was experiencing how degraded it was and how degraded all the people were. And they became more and more degraded by these activities. How horrible. And then the light of Krishna consciousness was shined into the situation. So quickly I thought, okay, I got to get out of here. Even though that was how I was making my living and paying my rent. So that is an extreme example of the human beings not understanding anything about the Vedic paradigm and engaging in activities that take them downward into lower species of life and into hellish conditions. Tamo dwaram yoshita sangi sangam. The path, the literally tamo dwaram, the gate, the doorway to hell. Tamo dwaram yoshita sangi sangam. Lord Rishabdev explains very nicely in his instructions. Now we had just spoken about these verses of Lord Rishabdev during the Sunday Feast lecture very recently, but today's verse is crying out for a repeat of the same understanding and education that Lord Rishabdev, who is, after all, the incarnation of God, is giving us. But before we go there, let us go to a Bhagavad Gita near the later section of chapter 2, and let us hear about the positive engagements of devotional service before we churn the sordid details of our material existence. So Krishna says, we're going to read 3 verses from chapter 2. Text number 50. Buddhi yukto jahatiha ubhe shukrita duskrite tasmad yogaya yujashva yoga karmashu kaushalam. This is a very significant phrase. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. A man engaged in devotional service rids himself of both good and bad actions, even in this life. Therefore, strive for yoga, O Arjuna. Yoga karmasu kaushalam. Yoga, which is the art of all work. So this is a very interesting and revealing understanding of the meaning of the word yoga. It is the art of how to work in Krishna consciousness, even while situated within this material body, which we could take this material body as an impediment to our spiritual existence because it covers us with ignorance. But the path to become relieved of that ignorance is yoga koshalam, yoga karmasa koshalam. Koshalam means art. So to live the artful life of yoga. And in the next verse, text number 51, karma jam buddhi yuktahi palam chaktva manishinaha janma bandha vanirmuktaha padam gachantyanamayam. The wise, engaged in devotional service, take refuge in the Lord and free themselves from the cycle of birth and death by renouncing the fruits of action in the material world. In this way, they can attain that state beyond all miseries. That same idea, padam gachanti anamayam, to reach that state which is beyond all miseries, that is similar to what Lord Rishabdev is saying, brahmasaukyam anantam, to experience true spiritual happiness, which is unlimited and goes on forever. And then here's a very wonderful verse that Krishna states. Yadate moha kalilam buddhir vyati tarishyati tadagun gantasi nirvedam shrotavyasya shrutasya cha. When your intelligence has passed out of the dense forest of delusion, you shall become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that has to be heard. Which, if you analyze all that has been heard and all that is to be heard, that means all the squawking of the conditioned souls. And some of that squawking is being presented by, Prabhupada refers to in today's purport, scientists and philosophers. They're very big scientists. They have so many PhDs and great philosophers. They've studied all the works of Schopenhauer and Kant and all the great philosophers, Socrates and Plato. One time when I was doing door-to-door, actually here in Tucson back in the 90s, I got into a group of students who were of Greek origin but lived on the island of Cyprus. And one of them's name was Socrates. Socrates. That was his name. Comes from that tradition. And he wanted he said, I want a painting of Alexander the Great. He's the big hero of the Greek culture, although he actually wasn't a Greek per se. So he was thinking that my name is Socrates. I am Greek, although I live on the island of Cyprus, which is divided, and only half is Greek. It's disputed. It's been that way for centuries. And the other half is Turkish or something like that. So he was really into the idea that he is this body and he is Greek, and the greatest of all the Greeks is Alexander the Great, and I want him on my wall. And it was all very amusing. That's right, Macedonian. Just like our Panchagoda Prabhu, the temple president in Sri Vrindavan, he's of Macedonian origin. He's Panchagoda the Great. So, this is an ignorance thinking that I am this body. What is that? Yatir Dabudhi Shalilena Karchij. What's the first word of that verse? Boma each D is a phrase. That one who goes to a place of pilgrimage just merely to take bath there, and one who thinks that Boma Ija D, Boma Ija, the place that I have taken birth, D, he thinks that this place is worshipable because I have taken my birth there. That makes it a holy place because I'm from there. You know, Kearney is a holy place because I have taken my birth there, right? Not exactly. It's not on the list of holy places in the Vedas. But even if one is born in some place like that. But I am born there, therefore it is great. Because I am great. Because I am the enjoyer. And someday, if I really play my cards just right, I will become God. Once again, which I have forgotten. That's the Mayavadi philosophy. We are all originally God, we've forgotten we're God, and when we become liberated, we become God again. What a nonsensical proposition. You are God and you've forgotten that you're God? I got news for you. That ain't God. God never forgets. And he doesn't become something else and then become God again. And you are not God and you never will become God. That's devastating news. But it is the truth. And they say in Carmen parlance, the truth hurts. But also they say, know the truth, and the truth shall set you free. So this is what Krishna is speaking here. That the wise, engaged in devotional service, become free from the cycle of birth and death. And they renounce fruitive activities. That means working in this world to try to enjoy the results. Like Krishna explains, you have a right to perform your duty in this world, but you're not the enjoyer of the results. Actually, work as a sacrifice has to be performed. Yagyartat karmano nyatra, lokoyam karma bandhanaha. The work as a sacrifice to God has to be done. Otherwise, lokoyam karma bandhanaha, that work binds you to action and reaction. So those who are learned and wise engage in devotional service, which is work to please Krishna. That is a sacrifice. That work is a sacrifice. And that way one can attain the state beyond all miseries. Okay, let's see a show of hands. Who would like to attain the state beyond all miseries? Everyone except Todd. Oh, there you go. I knew your heart was in the right place. So, just by engaging the senses in their objects and trying to enjoy the results of whatever it is that we do in life, we simply become entangled. Lokoyam karma bandhanaha. So therefore, we have to learn this art of work, yoga karmana kaushalam, the art of all work. And in another verse, Krishna tells Arjuna that Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Therefore, understanding this great philosophy and this great science of devotional service to Krishna, Tasmad yogi bhavarjuna. Become a yogi. Become a practitioner of bhakti yoga. And this way you will become free from the miseries of material existence. I'm going to quote here a verse that is of my own composition from a song that I wrote that explains the difficulty of the conditioned soul in utilizing the senses to interact with their objects and therefore come to the conclusion of the truth by that process. And that is, it's too hard to know what's right just by touch, smell, sound, and sight. Can we truly know what's real based on only what we feel inside? And that's a song entitled Follow the Spiritual Master, which is the process of coming to the conclusive truth. Follow the teachings of Krishna in Bhagavad Gita. That is the process of understanding the conclusive truth, that our identity is far beyond this bag of mucus, bile, and air, stool, urine, bacteria, blood, all these great substances which we are so eager to enjoy in their amalgamated form and think that thus I shall become happy. What a foolish proposition. But that is the power of Maya, the illusory energy of the Lord, which keeps all the conditioned souls in their place because we have voluntarily turned our face away from Krishna. Krishna Bahir Mukha. Krishna is calling us, come back to me, you fallen souls, engage in my service and you'll be fully happy. And we're like, no thanks. Been there, done that. Nah, not for me. I mean, you have your truth, I have my truth. You do what you think and I'll do what I think. And this way, the conditioned soul accepts the position of himself as his spiritual master. But actually the mind and the senses are dictating. So what is the position of one who has accepted himself as his own spiritual master? That is a spiritual master who has a fool for a disciple, if you catch the meaning. So one shouldn't do that. And how does the Bhagavatam describe those who do not take to Krishna consciousness? Not in very kind or sweet language, but sometimes when you hear the truth, it's going to hurt because it exposes you as a fool and exposes what you're thinking, what you're doing as the wrong path. Andhaya tandayar upaniyamanas. Just like yata, just like andha, the blind, leading the blind leaders of human society mentioned here to today's purport, the philosophers and scientists, the teachers, the parents, the whole human society. Andhaya tandayar upaniyamanas. Blindly being misled by other blind people. And how can they follow the right path in that way? Because the result of the blind leading the blind is they go off the path, they fall into the ditch. And thus they are bound up by the very strong cords of the modes of material nature, especially passion and ignorance. And when you're bound up in that way, you can't escape. What is that verse in the 16th chapter of the Gita about the demoniac? There's a couple of verses I'm thinking of. One of them is, Prabhatim cha, nibratim cha, jana navidara suraha, nashocham napi cha charo, nasatyam teshu vidyate. They don't understand the truth. Prabhatim cha, nibratim cha. They don't know what is to be done, what is not to be done, as we mentioned earlier. Janana vidarasa. They can't see clearly what's going on. Those who have taken to this path of asura, or the path of non-Krishna consciousness. Nashocham napi cha charo. Nasatyam teshu vidyate. Neither truth, nor cleanliness, nor proper behavior is found in them. We see a lot of this lack of truth, cleanliness, and proper behavior found in our street people here in the neighborhood. No cleanliness, no truth, no proper behavior. Practically like animals. How can we say such a thing? Because that's what's stated in Srimad Bhagavatam. Savidvara hostra karai. Samstuta parasha pashu. Pashu means animal. Nayad karna pato peto jatu nama gadagrajaha. That people, so-called human beings, who do not listen to the glories and the pastimes of the Lord, who do not engage themselves in Krishna consciousness and hearing and chanting about Krishna, suavidvara hostra karai. They're like dogs, hogs, camels, and asses. Samstuta, purusha, pashu. They're purusha persons, but pashu like animals. Oh my God. And those sound like all good names for like football teams. Actually, those are some of the names of football teams. One friend of mine, a devotee, the devotees used to go out and collect at the football games with like stickers for the different teams. And so it was the Arkansas Razorbacks versus the Georgia Bulldogs. So in order to give the right sticker to the person and then ask for a donation, he would say, "Are you a dog or a hog?" Because we're the dogs. Oh, we don't like you. We're the hogs, which are the nicknames for those teams. So actually, he's dealing with the dogs and the hogs. You don't see too many teams, though, with the camels. Maybe in Afghanistan and Pakistan and parts of Persia. You might find a cricket team, the camels. And of course, nobody wants to claim to be the asses. The burros or the donkeys. They go donkeys. Beat those hogs. So that is the state of the so-called human beings. They're not different than the animals. It's pretty heavy language. If you tell an ordinary person, oh, my dear sir, you are nothing more than a dog, a hog, a camel, or an ass. Who you calling a dog, hog, camel, or ass? What you talking about, Willis? Who you think you are? But that is the version of the authorized scripture. And that's not the only place in the Bhagavatam we hear such language. There's that verse in the 5th canto. What is it? That Harava Bhaktasya Kato Mahadguna Mato Ratinasati Dhavato Bahi. Was this quoted in yesterday's class? Yesterday's class was about the mind. Mano Ratinasati means the chariot of the mind. Dhavato Bahi, one is carried away by the senses because one is riding on the chariot of the mind, which has rejected the spiritual process of devotional service. Harava Bhaktasya, abhakta. Harav means Hari, God. Harava Bhaktasya, one who's not a devotee of the Lord. Kato Mahadguna. No matter how wonderful they may seem externally, very beautiful, very educated, very rich, very creative, very accomplished, even clean sometimes. Harava Bhaktasya, but because they are not Krishna conscious, they're not a devotee of Krishna, they're carried away by the chariot of the mind. It's like the illustration of the mind or the soul sitting in the driver's seat of the chariot, and he's asleep and the reins are gone from his hands. Where's that chariot going to go? Those ponies are going to run wild, and those ponies are the senses. So they're running wild, and one has to control them with the reins of intelligence. But if one is asleep, spiritually speaking, and one's intelligence is not controlling the mind and directing the mind towards proper spiritual understanding, then those horses just run wild. And those horses are like the senses. You get 5 horses on the chariot and the 5 senses. So, it's a lot to swallow for one who is not trained in the yoga system and one who is not trained in the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. But that does not mean that we should compromise or change our philosophy. Prabhupada said one time, I cannot change the philosophy to suit the Americans who are, like a bunch of cowboys in the Wild West, shooting up Dodge City, trying to enjoy the senses in an unbridled manner. No, we cannot change the philosophy. Actually, we follow what is given in Bhagavad Gita and what is given in the Bhagavatam. These are the authorities and the standards of knowledge and behavior that we accept and we follow. And therefore that poetry I quoted from that song, the first part of that song is, follow the spiritual master, make his word your life and soul. Deviate, no, never. and you will reach the goal. And you will reach the goal. And of course, that goal is Brahma Sokyam Tunantam. Unlimited spiritual happiness, the pleasure of engaging our senses in the service of the master of the senses, who is the Supreme Lord. The real activity that this human life affords us the opportunity. And if we don't take advantage of these spiritual instructions given by the Vedas and the spiritual masters in the disciplic succession, then down we go. Durlabham. What is it? Durlabham anusam janma tadepya dhruvamartadam. This human form of life, it's not so easy to get compared to all the other unlimited numbers of species of life there are available. How many forms of bacteria are there? And each one of those bacteria is a living entity. Yastvindram gopamata vindram ahosvakarma bandhanu rupam palabhajam atnoti karmadi nirdahati kintu tabakti bhajam govindamadi purusham tamaham bhajami. From this tiny little indragopa, which is a little bacterial, like a little paramecium or whatever, all the way up to Indra, the king of heaven, everyone is rotating in the cycle of birth and death. And everyone is accruing their reactions and enjoying or suffering, mostly suffering, a little bit of enjoying those reactions. And the only way to pull the plug on that cycle, karmadi nirdahati kintu ta bhakti bhajam, one who engages in bhakti, then that pulls the plug and turns off that switch of karma, and one makes progress gradually, spiritually, which is the real goal in business of this human form of life. There's a couple of verses in that 16th chapter that are not in my book. Shame on you, book. It should be. But it describes how those who take to the demoniac way of life, they work for fruitive results in this world, and they become bound by a network of illusion and unlimited desires, and pursuing those, and then they go further and further down into the lower species of life, thus wasting this fabulous gift of the human form. Okay, that's it. We'll stop here. Questions, comments, realizations? Go ahead, Mike.
I was kind of curious. I mean, I know we practice a lot of these practices and these philosophies to kind of get our head out of the body consciousness. And I'm just curious as to, we live in a world that seems to be at least our society in America seems to be increasingly obsessed with the body and attachment to the body. And it's just, sometimes it's hard for it not to rub off on you even a little bit. And I'm just curious, how do we protect ourselves from that influence that really, because for me, it's like, I feel like I try my best to avoid it, and then somehow it gets in my brain, it gets in my consciousness, and then I'm like,
it gets you.
And I'm like, oh, if I look good, I'll be happy, or whatever it is. And then
I'm healthy. And
then I get stuck in that, because then I'm like, well, but I can also be happy if I do other things too. It's not just my body or my physical health that's going to make me happy necessarily. But I guess just my question is how do we protect ourselves from that?
Yes, that's the formula given by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. He is asked that, what is the behavior of a Vaishnava, the one who is on the path of Krishna consciousness? And the answer is, Asatsanga tyag. E Vaishnava achar. Achar means behavior. Vaishnava achar. What is Vaishnava achar? Well, first of all, asatsanga tyag. Tyaga means to give up.
Bad
The
association.
sangha, the association of asat, those who are not devotees. It's like, oh, wait a minute. What about my friends? Asatsanga tyage Vaishnavachar. Sri Shangi Ekashadu Krishna Bhakta ar. So avoiding the association, giving up the association of those who are not only not interested in Krishna consciousness, but who are very interested in the activities of sense gratification.
Mm-hmm.
That's the instruction.
Oh, it is a
What's a fella to do? Right?
dissociate from the degrading influence. You know, it's like
Yeah.
It's-
In other words, therefore, Prabhupada has created and spread the International Society for Krishna Consciousness to create a society, international society of devotees who are dedicated to Krishna consciousness and come together for the purposes of Krishna consciousness. And there is, of course, the material world is unavoidable. It's everywhere you go. Like the criminal Dudley Do Right's sworn enemy, Savoir Faire, said, Savoir Faire is everywhere. So Maya is everywhere. But one has to live in such a way that one does not take shelter of the association of non-devotees. You can go to the grocery store, and buy something. If you're lucky, you may get a cashier. But that doesn't mean you become the best friend of the cashier and you go out and you have a beer with the cashier, or you go to their house and do Lord knows what with the cashier. No, you can do your business with the cashier and you pay them and thank them. Hare Krishna, thank you very much. That's not associating.
Mm-hmm.
But going to their house, that's associating. So asat sanga tyag. And one has to learn, even though there are many wonderful, beautiful, attractive people in the world, seen from the illusory point of view. But the devotee only wants to take their shelter in associating with like-minded devotees. Prabhupada compares it to the stock market. You go to the stock market to make money. So who's at the stock market? All the other stockbrokers making money. Actually, my stepbrother's a stockbroker, an investment guy. So because all the other guys are there, they're all making money, they know the ins and outs. Okay, you do this. No, don't buy that one. Buy this one, it's going up. Sell that one, it's going down. They know everything. They're all together there. And so they're all making money. They're the stockbrokers. So Krishna consciousness movement is the Wall Street of spiritual advancement. You go there and you see devotees, chant these mantras, learn these verses. Here's the philosophy. Here's how you practice. Only take prasadam. You learn this art and you make progress in the association of the spiritual stockbrokers who are very expert and taking great profit in devotional service of Brahma Sokyam Tvanantam, the spiritual happiness and love of serving Krishna. All right, and you had a question?
Yes. What I was curious about is, what about those of us that are wanting to become devotees, but haven't been trained yet, but are seeking?
Yeah, so
Are we outsiders still? Are we?
the principle is the same. Associate with devotees, learn the science, learn the practical details, and then you will make progress. And that's the way. It's by association. Adau Shraddha Tat Sadhu Sangha Bhajana Kriya. Adau Shraddha. First, you have to have a little faith, which you do. And then Adau Shraddha Tat Sadhu Sangha. Then you associate with the devotees. And then next, Bhajana Kriya. You learn the activities of devotional service. How to worship, how to serve, how to hear, how to chant, what to hear and chant about. Everyone is hearing and chanting. We're just happen to be hearing and chanting about Krishna. But everyone in the world is hearing and chanting. Therefore, we read that verse in the Gita that those who self-realize, they become indifferent to all that has been heard and all that is to be heard. All the kata that fills the airwaves of the materialistic society. Whether it be social media or social media so big. I myself am not on social media. You know, that's the joke. Somebody said, hey, how'd you get to play the guitar like that so good? I said, you know that 3 hours a day you spend on Facebook? I'm practicing. So, that 3 hours a day I'm spending on Facebook, we're chanting our japa and hearing for Srimad Bhagavatam. That is the difference. But even devotees get caught up in social media. And there's so much buzz about this and about that, and controversy and gossip and all these things. And one becomes bewildered by such things if one takes it to heart. Or if you're just cynical like me, like, forget it. You got nothing to do with it. I got better things to do. I even got better material things to do than social media. So, all right, anyone else? Yes, sir.
Yeah, Satsanga Tyaga verse, that's what not to do, right? How not to associate. So Lord Chaitanya, on the positive side, he said, I have so many fruits to distribute. I need help. Please help me distribute these fruits so we can give the cashier a Gita or something, or an invitation to go do this. Then you're automatically inoculated from that kind of association.
Yeah. Well, Asat Jangatag also means embrace the association of devotees.
Yeah, that's what you do.
And then the Asat, there's no room for the Asat.
Yeah.
You embrace Krishna consciousness, there's no room for Maya. Like I got rid of that. I'm not into that anymore. I used to be into that, but now I'd like to be honest. That wasn't getting me anywhere good. But practice Krishna consciousness, associate with devotees. That'll take you where you really want to be, back at Krishna's lotus feet. Our real home, back to Godhead. Okay, thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.